Hi, I'm Aubrey Schmalley, pediatric occupational therapist, owner of Sensational Achievements, and author of Body Activated Learning. Today, I wanted to talk to you about uh, OT being more than just a related service in the school setting. Now, when I was doing my field work in occupational therapy about 19 years ago, one of the lessons that I learned was that you always need to make your goals and documentation be relevant to the payer. So in a rehab hospital, that means you're writing goals for toileting and transfers and dressing and bathing so that someone can be safe to go home and participate in what occupational therapists call the jobs of living. So I remember for me, it was really challenging in a hospital setting to write very simple goals, such as being able to do something with supervision or independently or with minimal or moderate assistance. They were very nondescript. But when I was doing my fieldwork in sensory integration, I really had the opportunity to weave the foundational sensory motor deficits into the goal and make a goal that would show that there was a functional change in behavior or participation at home, in school, or in the community. So now fast forward, it's 2019. I didn't choose rehabilitation for my career path, but I have completed countless in-depth sensory-based evaluations for the Board of Education in my local communities and advocated for occupational therapy and sensory-based support plans in school. And at times I'm sitting at the PPT and I'm reminded that there's a difference between medically based OT, what people consider what I do in a clinic, and educational OT, or that OT is a related service, not a primary service. And both statements for me are equally frustrating, but at the same time, do have an element of truth to them because there are rules around when occupational therapy can be provided in the school system. But I think it's also an opportunity to expand the lens of OT's role in school for those that are willing to listen and teams that are really interested in looking at a comprehensive support plan, because there is so much research on the connection between movement and learning. That's how we got wiggle breaks and brain breaks. That's how we started implementing mindfulness. We know that the brain changes when you use physiological activities to support self-regulation and brain activation. So I know from my days in the rehab hospital, there were numerous insurance denials, and what I evaluate as a specialist in sensory processing and learning is certainly not what the insurance company considers medically necessary. So I don't really fit in that medical box when people say that the type of therapy that I do is medical. Yet, when we look at programs like mindfulness and zones of regulation and yoga and use of flexible seating, those are all sensory-based support strategies, and they have elements of sensory processing and physiological regulation built into them. So they're all acknowledging the inherent value of engaging the senses to support physiological self-regulation, attention, and focus. But then I'm told by the school team sometimes that the value of occupational therapy in the educational setting is limited to providing sensory diets or focusing on handwriting or typing or what they deem may be an appropriate box for occupational therapy to fit in. Now, I don't think that this is every team or every school by any stretch of the imagination, because I do sit on teams that are very open to an integrated model and updating and revising goals to make sure that they are specifically focusing on the child's deficits and areas of need to support participation within the school setting. So somewhere along the way, we started to accept that the role that occupational therapists have in school was just limited to some of these fine motor and handwriting issues, or writing a sensory diet that maybe could be implemented twice a day. And we got bogged down in a growing caseload of reports and goal writing and 30-minute sessions. We didn't have time. We lost our ability to really take time with the child and get to know their sensory systems and how they're impacting learning and self-regulation, but also to really teach children about their own bodies so that they can take some ownership about what their needs are to perform their best within the school setting. I think that if you are a therapist who does have a background in sensory integration and you are working in the school setting, that we have so much more to offer the team and the collaborative model than just writing a sensory diet or working on handwriting during a session. The research is overwhelming. Children learn first through their sensory and motor experiences with the world to create a body foundation for the development of higher order language, social skills, cognitive skills, spatial perception. And Piaget's theory of stages of development reinforce all of this. The pyramid of learning reinforces all of this. Maslow's hierarchy of needs reflects this as well. The research on the benefits of exercise, brain breaks, they're all confirming that there is a role for sensory integration and improvement of sensory and physiological function within the school setting to help children learn. So I really want to try to encourage you to expand your understanding of sensory integration beyond just thinking that it's a medical or clinic-based type of intervention to the fact that it can be part of the core support plan in how we help a child learn. So we can't deny that the brain's ability to change and adapt comes from engaging with the world. That's why we have kinesthetic and multisensory learning. And giving the body the right kinds of activities and inputs to promote self-regulation, we can activate the brain and the body for learning. So this year, it's my hope that the message can be shared with both parents and professionals who work with children in education. Occupational therapists that have a background in sensory integration have a unique understanding of how the senses can impact learning, not just motorically, but in social skill development, attention shifting in the classroom, follow through of multi-step activities, building of executive functions, writing, and even reading skill development. So if you're an occupational therapist working in schools and you are interested in really learning how the body and the brain work together and being able to bring that knowledge to your school team, I really challenge you not to accept the status quo. Practice self-care, avoid burnout, because we know you have a big caseload and there's just not enough hours in the day to get everything done a lot of times. But don't avoid taking a course because your supervisor told you it wasn't relevant to your role in school, when in your heart, you really feel like a course could be valuable for you. Don't ever stop growing professionally in your knowledge base so that you can make an impact in a child's life and truly give them the skills for the job of living as you were trained to do in an educational setting. Now, a lot of times we see children who maybe are supported in elementary school, but then they transition to middle school and occupational therapy again seems to kind of take a back seat. But a child with autism who's overwhelmed in the hallways and who can't manage being at their locker with everyone around them, that's a significant issue. And it will impact their ability to go into their next class feeling calm and regulated and available to learn. So we need to consider that there are going to be other ways that we can implement sensory-based support plans at the middle school and high school level as well to be able to meet the needs of a growing generation of children who have sensory processing differences, but also children who live in a screen-based world and don't get the same types of movement and sensory-based experiences that a lot of us grew up with. So for the teams that have been open-minded and seeking knowledge and working together for the common good of a student, embedding supports across all aspects of their day. You prove every day that it's possible if you don't set limits on your own thought process or tell yourself it's not your job or your scope of practice is limited to X. And it's because of you that a child goes from frustrated and unhappy and friendless, full of self doubt, to being an empowered, lifelong learner who's not limited by his or her disability and adds value to the world. This year in 2020, let's consider moving forward. Let's consider how we can activate the body for learning. I have a framework called the Body Activated Learning Framework, and the goal is to really consider the way that we're using movement throughout the day, both for self-regulation and getting the senses to work together, but also to facilitate recovery from the demands of the school day by taking vision breaks and stretch breaks and moving out of all those tensing postures that we use when we're interacting with technology and we're not getting that same amount of movement that we used to in the past. If you want to learn more, please go to bodyactivatedlearning.com and look at the information. We do have an ebook available that can be used on the smartboard in the classroom. And if you go to sensational-achievements.com, you're going to see the hard copy of the book as well. We encourage you to stick with us throughout the year. We'll be posting a lot more videos and information, but my goal today is really just to inspire you, whether you're an occupational therapist or another professional working in the educational system. It's time to expand the way that we think about sensory processing and sensory integration so that we can better serve this generation of learners who are just coming in with more self-regulation and body control issues through a combination of maybe being more neurologically diverse, but also living in a screen-based world. Please stick with me, come back, check back in, like this video, share it with other people if you think that they could benefit, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.